to bring light to some of your concerns. Really, I have Taiwo Dele. You heard his voice already. He's the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. So, Dele, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sharif. Good morning, Nigeria.
Are you people increasing tax?
No. That I can say confidently. We have no plans to increase taxes. Yeah. In fact, we want to reduce them by eliminating many taxes. And I have to say, this is a plan, not a promise. Okay. The idea is to reduce the over 60 different taxes we have officially. Unofficially, there are more than that. We want to be able to reduce that to a single digit. So that across federal government, state, and local government, you don't pay more than 10 taxes. So we are confident that this is possible with the support from everyone.
Yeah, the president made a statement that the era of borrowing to fund public expenditure is over. How is he going to be able to do that, especially now that we don't have money? Do we have money?
We don't. We don't. We're still borrowing. But I think the plan is to get from where we are now to where we like to be, which is be able to fund your operations yourself. Last year, the federal government spent close to 96% of its revenue just servicing debt. With that, there's nothing left for development. You have to borrow to do almost everything. And the cost of borrowing is so high, it creates a further problem the subsequent year. So we have to reset. So what the president is hoping we'll be able to do is, if you are going to repeal so many taxes, you are not introducing new ones. How do you raise the revenue to balance the budget? We think that the tax gap, which is the difference between what you're collecting and what you should be collecting as we speak today, we think is around 20 trillion naira. That 20 trillion naira was estimated based on the African average. So we're not even going beyond Africa. Okay. The average tax to GDP ratio for Africa is 16%. Okay. If you take out Nigeria and you recalculate that average, it is 18%. So Nigeria should just get to the African average. That's where the 18% came from. Now, if you take that 18%, Nigeria's GDP is roughly about 200 trillion naira today. So that gives you about 36 trillion. We currently collect across all levels of government about 16. So easily, this rough estimate makes a lot of sense to me that the gap is around 20 trillion. So which means all you need to do is get people who need to pay that are not paying. Some are not paying at all. Some are not paying correctly. You now see that the burden is falling disproportionately on the poorest people, who are actually the people you should protect. And this also came up in, I think it was, must have been 2017 or thereabout, when the former vice president, Yemi Osibajo, was acting as the president, and we launched the voluntary asset income declaration scheme, a tax amnesty. And the data that the government had showed that 96% of people paying the taxes at the state level were PAYE people. Yeah, civil servant, people struggling to survive. It was heartbreaking for me. So we need to change that. Let's take the burden away from the poorest people, get the people who should be paying to pay the right amount of tax. You get two benefits from that. First, you raise the revenue that you need to fund the system. Two, when you allow tax evasion to be pervasive, you still have a good number of honest people who are trying to do the right thing. You make them uncompetitive. So you and I are doing the same business. You pay your tax correctly. Me, I decide not to pay my tax. I have so much more money than you that I can use to even price you out of the market. So we cannot have the society that we hope for if we allow this to continue. And the other areas where we think the money will come from without introducing new taxes, number one is to reduce the cost of collection. Okay. Our cost of collecting taxes is embarrassingly high. Let me put it that way. Globally, the target is not more than 1%. Okay. Ours is somewhere in the range of 5 to 10%. In some instances, it's as high as 35%. And they take this from source before they remit the money to the government. You also have incentives, and some of them were okay, reasonable 20, 30 years ago. We haven't looked at them for so long. we think it's now time to take a second look. We're going to be looking at cost-benefit analysis. Government is giving away 10 naira. What are we getting in return? If it's less than 10 naira, that incentive no longer makes sense. Let's rationalize it, remove distortion that comes from incentives that are not clear, and then limit them, make them targeted, and provide sunset so that they're not there forever. So we think that these combined initiatives and ideas is where the money will come from, and that's why the president was confident to say we'll stop borrowing.
Okay. I mean, look, one of the things I cherish most about you is how to break these things down for my people to understand. I will also like the taxpayers, my people, to be able to call in on the show and ask all the questions that they want to ask, because I know quite a number of people would have a lot of questions for you. If you've got questions, please send them in on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is 0809-597-5805. We'll open up the telephone lines in a moment, but we quickly need to get to some places in our conversation this morning before we can do all of that. Mr. you mentioned something earlier about, people who are supposed to be paying these taxes that are not paying, that have not been paying, or some that are paying but they're not paying what they should be paying.
Yeah.
So that speaks to one thing for me, a defective system, a structure that has been compromised. And you still have these players in this structure.
Yes.
How do you intend to do all
Very
this?
good question, my brother. So these people actually cut across. Some of them are high net worth individuals.
Exactly.
Some of them they manage large businesses. Some of them are even in the public sector. So you have sometimes even some government-owned enterprises that are into business and not paying their taxes correctly. In fact, we, from the Auditor General's report, you also find some MDAs even after they've collected money from contractors. So the law says if you award a contract, both the value-added tax and the withholding tax should be retained by the government agency or ministry, and you remit to the relevant account, They refuse to remit this in some cases. So we need to address that. And I think that almost every country in the world, if you allow misbehavior to go unpunished, or you allow very little or no consequences, more people will do it because you've given them incentives to do it. So I do not think that Nigerians are just bad people, right? It's because the system has been a sort of an enabler for this to continue for so long. And we're now saying, no, we don't want that to continue anymore. If we think, for example, that we shouldn't be paying, and that's my personal view, we shouldn't ask companies to pay 30% corporate income tax, 3% education tax, information technology. If we add it up, companies in Nigeria are paying close to 40%. This is one of the highest in the world. Maybe the conversation is it should be 25%. But whatever it is that we agree on, using data and evidence, everybody should pay it. There should be no exceptions. There should be no entity that is above the law and they can do whatever they like. So
is there going to be a conversation between your committee and stakeholders,
Yes.
Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, for instance, the other groups? Are you going to have conversations on this? Is it going to be a mutual agreement?
Wonderful question. This is at the heart of what we want to do. So we have a long list of membership. Of course, we can't include everyone. So what we are then doing is we're going to have extensive stakeholder engagement, and we have so many groups, including people living with disability.
Oh, brilliant.
We have traders. We have farmers. We have Nigerians in the diaspora, because sometimes we don't remember they are a key stakeholder. They are still Nigerians. It doesn't matter which other citizenship that they have. Real estate sector, transport, haulage, hospitality, creative sector as well. The entertainment, even the media. We're going to be coming to you guys, apart from inviting me to talk to you like this.
Right.
MSMEs, fintech, capital market. It's a long list. We're speaking to everyone. We do not want to pretend that we know all the answers. We want to be able to co-create this solution with the Nigerian people. So even the government officers, the tax collectors, we're going to be speaking to everyone. Right. And our plan is first to tell you what we're planning to do, and then listen. Okay. And then we come back and give you the feedback. You told us to do 1, 2, 3, 4. We're doing 1, 2, 3, 4 we are unable to do for the following reasons, right? Because sometimes people may not always agree with everything you want. And to be honest, without preempting this consultation, I expect everybody will look for incentive to give us more incentive, right?
Yeah.
And it's actually impossible to give everybody incentive, but you need to then explain, for example, if you're unable to grant it, the reasons why you're unable to do so, and what else you're giving in exchange for not giving incentives.
Mr. Tayo, another thing that one of the reservations of people is the fact that there's that issue of multiple taxation. So people pay the federal, they pay the state, they pay the local government. In some instances, the local government is turning into another thing entirely because there's hardly a record for this. I mean, look, you are the expert here. Is there a plan to harmonize all of this?
Yes. The answer is yes. In my previous role as a research director for the Nigeria Economic Summit Group, we did a national study, and we're speaking to Nigerian people, businesses, small and large, and then to tax officers. We went around asking local government how much money they collected. In over 90% of the local government, they had no records.
Ooh.
Those who had records, we found out that majority of them, the amount they said they had collected from taxes was not enough to pay the salaries of people collecting the taxes. So, which means on paper, if you close, if you close down those units and say, let's not collect any taxes, government will be better off. So the plan we have is first to try and harmonize those taxes such that maybe you pay only just 1 or 2 taxes at the local government level.
Okay.
And the way and manner in which you pay it will be so transparent. If it's to do start something, right? And just pay it on your and the receipt comes on your phone.
Yeah.
So that way there's nobody intercepting it, giving you fake receipts. And we also hope that we'll be able to develop like a template model for states. So we say this is how to harmonize all your taxes along with your local government in one document. So you can now just adopt it, right? So that helps us. We know we cannot impose anything on them. We recognize their right to impose taxes as granted by the Constitution, but we also know that they love Nigeria and they want this country to progress. So we think that they will come on board.
Indeed. Now let's take 1 or 2 calls before we head out on this first break in this hour. 0700 993 993 993 and 01 465 7190. Please go straight to the point when you're calling in. Please straight to the point. Thank you. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
This is Lawrence Delo.
Let's hear you.
Okay, I like your guest analysis. The question I want to ask is, he talked about some people are paying what they are not supposed to pay, and some people are not paying at all. For those that have been paying tax correctly, can he just tell us what are the benefits of those people paying correct tax? You have been paying tax since 2007 in Lagos. I can tell you, if you go to my street, it's a no-go area anytime it rains. There's no common water. The ordinary water everybody needs. Nothing. So what is the benefit of those paying taxes correctly? Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence Silo. And he rightly took that out of my mouth because we were going to talk about, what actually discourages most people from paying taxes because they feel that they actually don't have any benefit, from this. How is this going to change the mind? How do you plan to change the mindset of the people towards embracing paying their tax?
Yeah, it's painful, and I could feel, the caller as he was saying it. And this is why Nigerians will tell you that sometimes they feel like they are a local government to themselves. So you pay the tax to government, and then you still take care of what government should normally do for you if the system was working. We all agree and acknowledge that this is not the way we want our country to run. The way to address that going forward, and by the way, that study that we did shows that Nigerians' tax morale, that's your belief that you should pay your taxes and that evasion is wrong, is what we call tax morale. Is one of the lowest we've seen in the world, where only 17% of Nigerian adults think they should pay their taxes correctly. 83% don't see anything wrong in not paying. And they said to us the reason is because they don't trust governments and they don't feel like they get enough for the little that they pay. So the way to fix that is to get everyone who needs to pay almost as possible, maybe as 98% to pay the right amount, in which case you then have more money. And then we have to hold government to account first by ensuring that they report the taxes they collect correctly and transparently, and then how they spend it. That's what we call the quality of spending. Don't build a 10-kilometer road and say it's 10 billion when it could have been 1. And then it's not properly done. It takes 15 years to complete. So those are the issues we're going to be spotlighting as part of the work of my committee.
Fantastic. I can't take any more calls right now, but I think I can go through one message before the break. I can see everybody wants to ask Mr. Taiwo Edele some questions. So let's see. This person said, I'm happy your guest said they are not increasing tax, but I believe effective and efficient collection will dramatically increase tax revenues in Nigeria. But I want them to watch out for illegal tax collectors, especially the agbiros, all in the local markets, petty traders, pay a lot to as much as 5 different collectors who claim to have come from the local government, even painfully. The Alabarus in this market are not exempt. That's legs from Akute. Just so we are clear, you are not collecting state taxes. Are you?
No, we're
I
not.
mean, taxes. Okay, please. Let's go to break. Let's go to break.
We remain loyal to bringing you the details and stories around the world.
The boys in that environment were just shooting and pursuing them. I escaped that place in a whisker.
AP, PDP, they are comedians.
I'm not going to come to this platform to campaign for anybody. I will not to stand there to in problem.
Only on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Let's talk.
Okay, people, I've got great news for everyone. I mean, everyone. Football
Welcome back to the Crossfire here on Nigeria Info 99.3. I am Sheriff Quadri. I still have Taiwo Yedele here on the program this morning. We'll be talking about his committee and what they plan to do. He's the chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. Before we head on at all, let me also say that I would try as much as possible not to ask plenty questions this time because of time. The last 15 minutes of this show is sponsored by Ernest Liver Salt, right? And I'll try to give out some goodie bags. Those that won goodie bags last week, I'm not sure that you people have come to pick your goodie bags yet. But if you haven't, please come and pick it up. But if you have, thank you for coming around. So, again, this last 15 minutes is brought to you by Ernest Liver Salt. Let's get a message in from Ernest Liver Salt, and we'll be back to continue.
Babe, you've barely eaten anything. What's wrong?
I'm trying to be careful because
Mr. Taiwo, let's go back to our conversation earlier about this individual who was talking about taxis at the market spaces, Agbero, and all of that, Alabarus and all. And I was trying to ask whether you are involved in collecting such taxes, or these are taxes for states and local governments alone. Will your committee be involved in that?
Yeah, thanks very much. So we are not involved in collecting any taxes,
Okay.
but our mandate covers the taxes that are being collected across all levels of government, so including local government, state, and federal. If you look at the approved list of taxes and levies, you find some of these very annoying taxes. Wheelbarrow tax.
There's wheelbarrow tax.
Yes, there's kiosk tax. People are just trying to make a living legitimately. And then the first thing, in fact, sometimes just starting a small business and you put a small signpost, it's almost like committing a crime. They'll say you have not paid a levy for advertising, you have not paid business premises levy, there's shop and kiosk tax. Before you know it, before you even generate your first ₦1 revenue, you're having to pay all manners of levies and taxes. And that's why Mr. President said we're not taxing poverty, we're not taxing investment, we're not taxing production. We'll wait and tax the returns on your investment. We'll wait and tax your income. We'll wait and tax your consumption. We're not taxing seed, we'll tax fruits. So this is the principle and philosophy that is driving the work we have to do. We're hoping that we get to a point where all these annoying taxes will be a thing of the past.
I'm glad to hear that. That's such a relief. Well, let's talk about some stories that I've heard in the news that I don't know whether they're quoting you or they're quoting something else, that the government has banned agencies from collecting, that FIRS will be the sole revenue collection.
Thank you for asking, Sherry. I think they're just people who want to sensationalize everything.
Yeah.
So what I said, thanks again for the opportunity to just clarify this. So we said in many countries around the world, HMRC in the UK, SARS in South Africa, KRA in Kenya, even GRA, our friends there, you have one central agency collecting taxes for government, including when those taxes belong to an agency. So in Rwanda, they said to us that even if you want to do your international passport, when you pay for international passport, it's not a tax because you're paying for a service. Even that payment is collected by the revenue service on behalf of the immigration. Yes. So, and what this does, it helps with transparency and ease of payment. So, and then it takes a significant burden off that agency so they can focus on their primary mandates because they were not set up to collect revenues. So, what we are proposing is that the FRS at the federal level becomes only the agent to help everyone collect their revenue so those people can focus on their work. I'm very mindful, and I know very well that many of these agencies have establishment law enacted by the National Assembly saying they should collect. So how can I say they've been banned? You can't ban them. Not even the president can ban them. So this is the beginning of a process where we want to have engagement. And once we have the buy-in from these agencies with the political will, then we go to the National Assembly and say, we've now agreed as Nigerians that we want to do these things more efficiently. Help us amend the law. So it's a journey. And I'll say it hasn't even started yet. This is just the initial thought around it. So they haven't been banned, but we hope that we get to a point where only the FRS collects revenue on behalf of all government agencies.
Right. Let's take a few more calls now. Kemi is here to tell us one or two things about civil assault, but let's see who is here on the line.
Hello,
good morning to you. Morning to you.
This is Joy.
Welcome, Joy.
You know what made me to call in?
Tell me.
The last statement you made. FIRS being the first.
FIRS.
The only.
FIRS.
Thank you. Being the only body to collect tax, so the other people will focus on their primary jobs. It is good you've gone round and you see what you got. At least Uganda, you say Uganda. How did you say Uganda? That this is what they do. And I know you're going to have a lot of pushback because what? They are stealing. I don't see any reason why immigration should be collecting money. I see no reason why JAM should be collecting money. They should be enacting policies to make their work easier for them. And if the House of Assembly are truthful to whatever job they have given to do, they shouldn't give you any pushback. They should enact and see it to work. So we'll know the people who are going to pursue when our monies are missing.
Thank you, Joy.
We know it is just one person.
Thank you for calling. Appreciate. Let's see who's here. Good morning to you. That caller's dropped. We're going to take another one. Good morning to you. Morning.
Good morning.
Yes, please.
Yeah. My question goes to Mr. Taiwo. I know he's an Oga accountant. I want to know what, if it's in their plan, to correct some of the anomalies. For example, I won't mention the name of the company. Recently, we bought an asset. We noticed the asset was registered with Ministry of Industry and Trade for pioneer tax or something. It was registered with one ministry for pioneer tax. Why they were registering it for pioneer tax, they registered it for 10 naira. I'm just giving an assumption now.
Okay.
They registered it for 10 naira. When they were importing it, because we also saw the importation document, because they have to collect everything, it was stated that they bought that asset for 4 naira. So later when I was discussing with a financial person, he said it was actually stated 4 naira for custom purpose to reduce the excise duty. It was stated 10 naira to that ministry to claim one tax rebate or one tax holiday. Do you understand? You can look at the gap now. Where you are supposed to pay your excise duty, you have paid less. Now you want to recover extra 10 naira from the federal government. What are we doing to this kind of lacuna? Creative accounting, window dressing, the guy called it. So what are we doing on these strategies that accountants and lawyers do to reduce the burden, and we, the common guy, will now be the one that will bear their own consequence? Thank you and good morning.
Well said.
Brilliant points. And this just reinforces why we said let one agency do all of that. So people are playing on the fact that the system is fragmented. So I say to custom, the value is 4 naira because I don't want to pay import duties. And then when I get to pioneer status, I inflate the value so I can get more benefits. So this person is not only underpaying tax, they are overclaiming benefits. Imagine you have one system, right? And nobody will even notice that it's not custom collecting it. Yeah, it will seem very seamless. You can't go to that same system and present one item with 2 different values. This is not even a tax matter anymore. It's a criminal matter. And this is pervasive. So he's right. It's part of the things we hope to be able to address.
I was going to ask you about, the mandates given to your committee. Could you, because of time, run through the mandates the presidents gave to you?
Yes, I'll do that very quickly. So our mandate has 3 pillars. The first one is fiscal governance, which is really, if you say there's a threshold for borrowing, your deficit should not exceed this, we should respect that. But we're going to start by saying, are those limits what we want now? And then we'll set the right ones. And then we must respect them. How do you ensure there's coordination between fiscal and monetary authority, not like doing naira redesign and the minister is not aware? So those issues are covered under fiscal governance. Then the second one is revenue transformation. This is where we're saying, how do we ensure that you don't tax poor people? You don't tax investment. How do you ensure that the people who should pay are paying the right amount of tax and paying it correctly and at the right time to the right authorities? This is also where we're going to be looking at how do you administer taxes. We don't want people to pay cash anymore. So simplify so they can pay through multiple channels that are auditable and credible as well. And the last one, because of time, is growth facilitation. Now, that is saying, how can you make your economy competitive? Our hope and aspiration is that Nigeria will become the center or hub for fintech, for headquarters companies, for innovation and research, as well as financial center for Africa. And to be honest, why should anybody not want to come to Nigeria if they have a business in Africa? We have young people who want to, not all of them want to travel abroad. They want to be here and work for global organizations and earn dollars. Our laws come in the way of doing that today. We say that doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's fix the law so that Nigerians will have the opportunity to earn dollars while they are in Nigeria if they don't want to relocate.
Do you have timeline that you want to do all of these things?
Yes, indeed. The first 30 days, which started 2 days ago, now 28 days left.
It's 2 days ago now.
Is what we call the quick wins. So what we do on that are the things that are not controversial, where there's this broad consensus, but nobody did anything about them. We'll try and fix them in 30 days. Then 6 months is critical reforms. Here we're going to be even rewriting the tax laws to simplify them, make them easy, if possible, convert them to major languages that people can understand. And then 1 year is for implementation. Now, both the 30 days, 6 months, and 1 year will run concurrently, which means if we come up with a brilliant idea today, we discuss with stakeholders, and the policymakers approve it. If we need to draft an executive order, we draft it, and it will be signed the day after. And we move on to the next one.
Nice.
So this is not a committee where you write a beautiful report and then you hope and pray that it's implemented. We've done that for many decades. It hasn't worked. In fact, I'm so hopeful that if this can work out, it becomes a template for other areas of reforms in our country.
Fantastic. Kemi's here. Kemi, anything for the boys?
A lot there, a lot. Okay, so honestly, orange.
Orange is your favor. I like orange. I like orange too, actually.
I thought you'd be more like the plain guy.
No.
Or maybe lemon.
I like orange.
All right. Then we're on the same page.
Kemi, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I've got an announcement. So thank you, Ernest Liversalt, for backing us for these 15 minutes. We're going to bring you the news at the top of the hour, Lagos, but we're not done. Jimmy Disu is not here, so we're going to borrow his time. So myself and Mr. Idele will continue. We'll take more of your calls right after the news headlines. So stay here with us here on Nigeria Info 99.3. We're back.
And I want to assume that you would run because I want to give the listeners context for the conversation.
In 2019, you were running mate to Atiku Abubakar. What did you learn then that you will not repeat this time?
Yes, when is the president